Greetings, friends, fellow citizens, fellow patriots, and even non-citizens, and welcome to this December 6th edition of the We the People Convention Weekly News and Opinion Podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski, and I'm the host of this podcast. I'm also the president of the We the People Convention organization, which, through their generous donors, funds this podcast, our wonderful website, our emails and text messages, all of our social media efforts, and our donations to other conservative individuals and groups that need our support. Thank you to all of you who donate and have done so for the past 16 years to allow us to continue our mission to protect and defend your and my and our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. That's what we're here to do. You can see that we're in the Christmas spirit. We've got our Christmas tree up. Nan does such a wonderful job, decorating it, and we're glad we've got that up. It's hard to believe that winter came early this year, and boy, I'm wondering when I'm going to be able to get outside and put up the exterior Christmas decorations, because folks, it's really cold here in the Midwest and the Northeast. And I even think some of you folks down south are getting some cold weather you aren't used to. But Merry Christmas to all of you. Let's have a great Christmas season. I want to welcome those of you who are new to the podcast. I think you're going to find this to be a very unique type of podcast because we cover really all the news that affects your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. But we also take action. We will ask you to do things to help protect your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity, and that of your family and your community and our nation. So we're not just about talk, we're about action. But I've got a really, really packed show for you today. I do want to take a moment and say thanks to the folks who are sending Christmas cards. Betty in Litchfield, New Jersey, thank you for the nice note you sent, and all the other people are sending emails and text messages and things. And I wish I could send all of you a personalized Christmas card and things, but I will try in this podcast, to convey that to you. We appreciate you all so much. So thank you for that. Last week I was wearing my Ohio State shirt, to support the Ohio State Buckeyes, and we were fortunate enough to get a significant win in Michigan. And now today there's another significant game when Indiana and Ohio State play tonight for the Big Ten championship. But a lot of people think it's really the national championship because the number one team, Ohio State, is playing the number two team, Indiana. But weirdly, the game almost doesn't matter. It's mostly for bragging rights because it doesn't matter if you lose the game, both those teams are going to get into the playoffs and could win the national championship even after losing this game. So it's kind of a weird thing, but boy, there's lots of other big, championship, the ACC, the SEC, the Big 12 championships. Enjoy this time of year. Enjoy the just the beauty of young Americans competing and trying to strive to be the best they can be in a great sport that really defines who America, at least who we were. Not sure if we still are today, but it's a sport that features toughness, both physical and mental toughness and perseverance, and a lot of great American qualities. So I hope you get to watch some football today. It'd be great. All right, enough of that. Let's get on with the show. This was, there's a lot going on this week, and so I'm gonna cover these things and give you the highlights. But you're gonna have to go and read the rest of the story. And for those of you who follow us for years, on our podcast page at wethepeopleconvention.org, every week we list every story in the show, and then it's a link. You can click on it and go read the original source that I'm using to tell you about what's going on. Okay, so you can follow up, but I'm going to tell you what it is and why it's important to you and to us and our nation. And then again, as I said, we'll be asking you to take some action. So for many of us, the big story of the week was that the January 6th bomber has been captured, and this is something that has really been concerning to us for many, many years because there was no advancement in this story. And you're like, how can they not catch this guy? FBI agents have arrested a man who allegedly placed pipe bombs in Washington on January 5th, 2021, officially announced on December 4th. The man, Brian Cole Jr., a 30-year-old employee of a bail bondsman, is accused of placing bombs consisting of pipe, end caps, electrical wire, a battery, and other materials near Republican National Committee and Democratic National Committee buildings in Washington the night before the January 6th quote-unquote insurrection, which was not an insurrection. It was a political protest of a corrupt election in 2020. He was charged with transporting explosive devices in interstate commerce and attempted destruction with explosive materials. Cole purchased items such as pipe and kitchen timers in 2019 and 2020 at stores including Home Depot and Walmart, and used these materials to manufacture the device, according to records obtained by investigators and described in an affidavit filed in the federal courthouse in support of the charges. Cell phone records placed Cole in the vicinity of the building on January 5th, 2021, and a Nissan Sentra he owns was spotted driving in the area that evening, an FBI agent wrote in the affidavit. But this is important next few statements. Today's arrest happened because the Trump administration had made this case a priority, Attorney General Pam Bondi said at a briefing in the nation's capital. There was no new tip. There was no new witness, just good, diligent police work and prosecutorial work, she noted. Okay? Our MAGA people, Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, Judge Jeanine, got this done. Okay? And again, the left is just so corrupt. And this is what you have to realize. The fight today is between truth and lies. That's what it is. And it's unbelievable that we have sunken so low as a nation where lying is just accepted. It should never be accepted by you or anyone. I do not lie to Nan. She does not lie to me. We don't lie to our kids. We don't lie to our relatives. We don't lie to our employees. We don't lie in our community. Truth is imperative if you want freedom, liberty, and prosperity. But we live in a land of lies, and we have to fight it. And there is no better example than this insane statement by Jake Tapper.
Capitol attack. Brian Cole Jr., a 30-year-old white man from the D.C. suburbs, is charged with transporting an explosive device in interstate commerce and with malicious destruction by means of explosion. CNN observed local and federal law enforcement outside his home in Woodbridge, Virginia this morning.
Yeah, he said he was a white guy. You can see by the picture, he was a black man. Why is that important? Because the whole narrative during the Biden administration, Christopher Wray, all of those guys, Merrick Garland, they wanted everything to be blamed on you, white supremacists. They did not want to solve this crime, and I'm going to prove that to you now. This was important because Dan Bongino spoke with clarity, and I want to play two clips from him, starting with this one.
You did not find any new evidence. It was all there, had been there for the longest period of time. The only difference between you and Director Wray and the Biden DOJ is they did not prioritize it. Why? And I know it wasn't easy to solve, but you did it in 8 months.
Yeah. Sean, I don't know what the hell this prior leadership team was doing outside of targeting political opponents, weaponizing the FBI, destroying its reputation, embarrassing agents that are doing really good work out there, catching terrorists, CCP spies, and everyone else. It's almost like they were intentionally trying to decimate faith in institutions. It's horrifying. I don't know what they were doing. I can tell you what happened, though, when we got there, the director and I. My first meeting, I swore in, and I kid you not, probably 15 minutes later, and the people who were in the meeting know, I said, when I get in there, I want a full brief on this pipe bomber case on day one. And I looked at the case agent after getting a full brief on what they'd done, and they had done some a pretty extensive amount of work. They had chased down, I think, thousands of leads, 6,000 plus interviews had been conducted, hundreds of tips, and it still was relatively stale, the case. And I grabbed the case agent on the way out, and I said, "You're going to get me this guy. You're going to track this guy down, and you're going to find him. You're going to get me this guy. I want him." And that started what's been almost a 9-month operation right now to make sure that we could get full accountability and transparency to the American public and find this guy. And today we did. But Sean, I have to add this because this is really important. You've heard all the cliches, team effort. You hear it all the time in sports. I said it today at the presser, but I want to emphasize this. This was a team. Judge Jeanine, Deputy Attorney General Blanche, people you and I know very well, AG Bondi. You cannot do anything in the FBI without DOJ process, subpoenas, drawn paper, search warrants, complaints, arrest warrants. Who do you think does that? It's not just us. We're the investigators. They're the lawyers.
Yeah, so there you have the story. They weren't trying to find this guy, okay? And the reason's going to become apparent. Benny Johnson posted this on X, and I shared it. The January 6th pipe bomber terrorist was a young black guy, radical anti-Trump activist, sued Trump and ICE and the Department of Homeland Security. He sued them in court, extreme racial justice advocate, worked at his family's bail bond company that frees criminal aliens from ICE custody. Okay, this is the guy that did this. Yeah, this explains exactly why the FBI and DOJ could not find this guy for 4 years. The Biden FBI had mountains of evidence against Brian Cole. Receipts, cell data, license plates, photos, videos of the crime. They knew exactly who did it. But Brian's profile destroys their entire MAGA white supremacist insurrection bomber narrative in one blow. Just blows it up. The FBI didn't fail to catch him. Leftists protect their own. This is the biggest FBI cover-up scandal in history. What a nightmare. It was a nightmare. But the nightmare is not over, and either is investigation. This is a real important statement by Dan Bongino. Listen to this.
New York Post reporting that this suspect, Brian Cole, had possible anarchist leanings. I have other contacts that spoke with people that lived in the neighborhood, that knew him. Any evidence at this point that you can tell us, any anti-ICE sentiment, any anti-police sentiment, any radicalization or evidence of radicalization that you and the team, to quote you, are finding and that you're seeing at this point?
Well, the assistant director in charge of the Washington field office is an absolute manhunter. Darren, you saw him at the press conference today. In just the last couple of months, he's had to deal with the tragic National Guard shooting, Washington Safe Streets program. He's been dealing with this case and other public interest cases as well. I say that because this was a lengthy investigation. This did not just happen yesterday. We've been doing this for a while. As legal process starts to come out and filter out into the public space, you may see some more stuff tomorrow. I don't want to get ahead of it, but you'll see more. And I want to be very clear with the public. This is chapter 1 of a 10-20 chapter book. This investigation is not over at all. The investigation has just begun. We've interviewed the subject at length. We are still going through an enormous amount of process, accounts. So it would be very early for me to get out ahead of that on motive. I mean, obviously the motive was to drop a couple bombs and, that could have killed people. But what the actual ideology and motivation, I want to be cautious that this gets done correctly, and sometimes smooth is fast.
Yeah, chapter 1 of a 10 to 20 page book. This is really significant. And I'm trying to share with you things that are deeper and have more substance, because it's important for you to be able to tell the story to others who don't really get it. So this story was in Zero Hedge, which is a really interesting website. If you ever go to zerohedge.com, they've always got some unique stuff. And this was authored by a guy named James Howard Kunstler. was the January 6th insurrection, quotes, a government-sponsored seditious conspiracy. Do you have any idea what tapestry and corruption and crime is attached to this little thread of the January 6th DNC RNC pipe bomber suspect arrested yesterday by the FBI? Consider this. Suspect Brian Cole Jr. is alive and probably talking, unlike, say, Jeffrey Epstein and Thomas Matthew Crooks in other matters of public interest. Let's hope he's under FBI protection in custody, lest, say, something happens to him. Okay? Guess what? Reports on Friday was he's talking. He admitted to planting the bombs. He's going to talk. Why is that important? You can suppose at this point that the story of that 4-year botched investigation will be a way bigger thing than the pipe bomber's little prank itself. First, what was supposed to happen in the joint session of Congress that day? So we forget. There's so much information, and even those of us in the Tea Party movement and the MAGA movement who supported what happened on January 6th knew it was a political protest, not an insurrection. We still forget important details, and I think this is the most important detail I'm going to share with you. So what was supposed to happen on that day? It was the certification of the Electoral College votes for the 2020 election. What else was liable to happen that day? Well, the insurrection and the planned stopping of that process. At midday, objections meeting the written requirements of one House member and one senator were filed for Arizona and Pennsylvania. And there was written challenges to the elections in Arizona and Pennsylvania, which we believe were fraudulent. Those objections to the Arizona vote by Representative Paul Gosar and Senator Ted Cruz was the first scheduled to be debated on that day, shortly after 1 p.m. Now, the timing's important. It was not allowed to happen. Instead, Congress evacuated the chamber and then returned at 8 o'clock that night. Well, why is that important? Well, here's why that's important. The pipe bomb at the RNC had been discovered some 20 minutes prior, and it was the discovery of that bomb at 12:44 p.m. that prompted the evacuation of the joint House and Senate sessions in Congress, not any breach of the Capitol building, which did not occur until 2:13 p.m., more than an hour later. Let me ask you a question. Why would a discovery of a pipe bomb outside the Republican headquarters, miles from the Capitol, be reason to evacuate the chamber? Why would that be a threat to congressmen right then and there? Well, I don't believe it is. I believe it was staged. And I think this kid's going to talk, and we're going to find that there are connections. So when Dan Bongino says, oh, this is chapter 1 of a 10 to 20 page book, yeah, the rest of it is the unraveling of the lie of the insurrection and the illegal efforts by Christopher Wray, the DOJ, the Biden White House, the left, to basically complete the stealing of the 2020 election. That's what this is really about, and that's why they didn't want this case to be broken. That's why they buried it. And that's why this is a big deal. And that's why you should send a text, send a Skype reply to Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, Judge Janine, and say, thank you. Because despite all the criticism, they're doing excellent work. And this is evidence of that. So I hope you understand the picture better. This isn't just about, oh, we caught this guy. That's just the start. Just the start. Much more to come. Okay. So then we move on to the other really big story of this week that basically turned out to be another nothing burger because it's a psyop, a psychological operation. It's a color revolution. It's Russia, Russia, Russia again. Nothing there, totally made up, but now you and I are, and we are informed, and we don't let these lies live. We crush them like bugs, okay? So this starts with an important story. Trump ready to move on Venezuela unless Maduro leaves the country. We put this story up on Monday on our website at wethepeopleconvention.org because it's a big deal. The United States military strikes on land targets inside Venezuela will begin very soon, President Donald Trump said during a cabinet meeting on December 2nd, while warning that other countries could also be subject to strikes if they're suspected of being involved in drug trafficking. We're going to start doing those strikes on land too, he said at the White House alongside his cabinet officials, responding to a question on whether the military will strike inside Venezuela. We know where they live, we know where the bad ones live, and we're going to start very, very soon. Now, and again, look at this map. If you're listening, I'm showing up a picture that shows that we have 15,000 military personnel just outside of Venezuela in the Caribbean. All these ships, our biggest aircraft carrier, this is a formidable force. This is not just about drug trafficking and the killing, murdering of our citizens for decades that no one bothered to stop but Donald Trump. This is about China's influence and Russia's influence and even Iran's influence in South America. That under Barack Obama and Joe Biden, okay, or Joe Obama, right, that they let the Chinese move in on all these South American countries with their Belt and Road nonsense. And why? To get them to help kill Americans, to help China become the sole world power. That's what this is really about. Trump is definitely stopping drug trafficking, but it's more than that. You need to understand it's part of a global world war. And stopping China, that's what this is really about. So, what's also the key thing here? This week was an attempt to try to get rid of Pete Hegseth. There's stories in the lefty media saying, oh, Pete Hegseth won't survive. He'll be the first Trump cabinet member to be relieved of duty. Bullcrap. He ain't going nowhere, kids. He's not going anywhere. But let me make clear and let you make clear so that you can explain to people what's going on. When I say it's like Russia, what was Russia? Well, it was, let's create this phony Steele dossier, and then let's leak it to the media, and then let's get the government officials to say that it's real. Well, what do we have here with these drug boat bombings? Oh, let's start, questioning these as it's not authorized by Congress, and President Trump doesn't have the authorization to do this. And then let's produce a video that says, oh, we're going to tell our military members, remind them that they don't have to follow illegal orders. And wait a minute, Shazam! A week and a half later, here's an illegal order. We killed 2 sailors, stranded sailors, okay? And that's a war crime. And the House and the Senate should investigate. You see the pattern? See the connection? Yeah. Well, that got blown the heck out of the water. Good play on words, right? Along with the boats.
Tonight, new information. According to a source familiar with the incident, the 2 survivors climbed back onto the boat after the initial strike. They were believed to be potentially in communication with others and salvaging some of the drugs. Because of that, it was determined they were still in the fight and valid targets. A JAG officer was also giving legal advice.
This backs up the entire second strike.
Yes, I mean, it just doesn't get more crystal clear than that. The mission is take out the boat, stop the drugs, keep this vessel and its cargo from reaching our shore using lethal means. And our amazing military, the heroes of the United States Armed Forces, did exactly that. President Trump, Secretary Hegseth, and this entire government are committed to finally using our military to defend our people, our borders, our family, our culture, our history, our heritage, to defend the United States. We're not going off running around the Middle East trying to build democracies in caves and deserts and in distant sands that have never known democracy. We're using the military to protect American security, American prosperity, American lives right here where we live, where our children live.
Yeah, that's what you and I voted for, right? Use our military to protect us, literally our homeland. And I really get upset with people like Rand Paul. I respect Rand Paul's intellect and constitutional, conservatism, but he really makes me angry when he gives the lefties the cover of saying, oh, it's a bipartisan investigation because Rand Paul refuses to see the big picture. Here's actually a video that he did that was on X, and I ripped him, called him an idiot on our X post, Tom Z, WTPC, on X.com, okay? Why? He's there saying, oh, these men were innocent men. They were in the water. They weren't armed. We don't kill unarmed people. What the hell are you talking about? We don't kill unarmed people. We kill unarmed people every damn day across the world. We kill people who are in meetings. We kill terrorists who are loading trucks. They don't have any weapons. They're just loading stuff to ship to other terrorists. And yes, the goal of the blowing up of the boats is to kill the terrorists, narco-terrorists who are trying to kill our children and undermine the very fabric of our society by getting people addicted to drugs so they don't work well at work. They hurt our GDP. They can't function in our society. That's what this is, folks. It's not just about drugs. This is China's war on America. And Trump is finally fighting it, and Rand Paul is too stupid to get it. Okay? Get it. Get serious. Those guys in the water, and again, they climb back up on the boat and they use the radio. I don't care. They work for the narco-terrorists, and they need to be dead. They aren't going to get saved and then just say, well, I'm out. You don't get to say that if you're in the drug world. They don't let you get out. So, yes, blow them all up. Oh, but the Democrats will tell you, and again, I was talking about truth and lies, right? Oh, Jake Tapper, he's a white guy, except for the black picture. Yeah, truth and lies. These were, I was disturbed by one of the most troubling things I've ever seen in Congress. Really? Yeah, you had nothing to say when Barack Obama was drone striking thousands of people who were not armed. You had nothing to say about that. And there's no such thing as a narco-terrorist, they're telling you. They'll tell you that. You can see that. Yeah. Well, the dimwit Dems, as I like to call them, continue to forget that there's this thing called the internet, where every stupid thing you ever said, and even if it wasn't stupid, but it contradicts your current position, is able to be pulled back up. And Donald Trump's a war criminal. He's unauthorized. We should never be doing this. We should not be attacking these people in Venezuela. We should be interdicting these boats, stopping these boats and charging them, they say. Yeah. Listen to what this guy had to say in 1989.
The trouble is that the president's proposals are not big enough to deal with the problem. We think we should do more to stem the flow of drugs across our borders, and we think we should go one step further. Let's go after the drug lords where they live, with an international strike force. There must be no safe haven for these narco-terrorists, and they must know it. We have to lock up the dealers for a long, long time, and we have to attack the source from which the drugs come. And we have to do that not a piece at a time, but all at once. And we have to do it now. And there's not any reason why we can't do that. We have the power, we have the money, and we have the knowledge.
Yeah, that would be Joe Biden in 1989. Yeah. How much do you believe the Pete Hegseth's a war criminal story now? Share this segment. All right, go to WeThePeopleConvention.org. Once our chapters player comes up, you'll be able to click right on that story and get a link to this story. You can play those videos for people. Expose the lies with truth. This is why we can never, ever allow the Marxist, communist-controlled, Chinese-controlled, Democrat socialists to ever control our government again. The FBI bomber thing shows you why, and this shows you why. They are not for America. They are defending the enemies of America. They are going to war, figuratively. They're going to the media and the people and claiming that these are the people we should be protecting. Oh, these sailors, stranded sailors. They're narco-terrorists. Joe Biden just said they were narco-terrorists. Okay? And so, bet you didn't see this story covered very well. I didn't. I only found it in one place. Welcome to America. Captured drug lords choose snitch or suffer. What is this about? This is a very interesting story. Okay? Under pressure from Trump administration, Mexico turned over 55 cartel leaders in a pair of cloak and dagger missions. Dozens of Mexico's most dangerous prisoners, cuffed hand and foot, boarded army jets under heavy guard this year, a rogue gallery of cartel leaders responsible for smuggling tons of heroin, fentanyl, cocaine, and methamphetamines in insatiable numbers to U.S. buyers. The men were rousted from prison, where money and corruption provides them with weapons, cocaine, booze, women, and phones to run their lucrative underworld empires from prison in Mexico. From prison, okay? Coordinating drug shipments as well as ordering killings and kidnappings, U.S. and Mexican officials said. The prisoners had no idea of their destination. Welcome to America, said Derek Maltz, interim head of the Drug Enforcement Administration, when he greeted the first batch of prisoners as they disembarked 9 months ago. A second group arrived in August, a total of 55 men who face charges that could keep them locked in maximum security prisons for the rest of their lives, where they won't have booze and women and drugs and all that stuff. They'll be locked up, okay? The prisoners represent the top echelon of Mexico's biggest criminal organization, the Sinaloa, Jalisco, New Generation, and Zetisa cartels. They include Rafael Caro Quintero, who's charged with killing DEA agent Enrico Kiki Camara in 1985 and has dodged extradition to the U.S. for decades. All are now in custody without bail. This story is from this week. This is from December 2nd. All right, this is a current story. U.S. officials expect many of the prisoners will share first-hand knowledge about the operations of the Mexico's underworld, from smuggling secrets and money laundering operations to the names of officials in government, the military, law enforcement, and finance who are paid to serve the drug trafficking industry. How's that for a win for the Trump administration that no one's talking about? No one's talking about. You know who's talking about this? Because I've been telling you about this now for 3 weeks. This is the third week. I've been saying what Trump's doing in Mexico is brilliant. And I said Victor Davis Hanson had a piece saying this may be the most important achievement of the Trump administration. It's so significant. He is taking on the drug cartels, which the world has let work, destroy our people, abuse people daily, behead people, shoot people, rape them, murder them, steal from them with impunity for decades. Donald Trump is the only person you've ever seen do anything. Oh, but he's a war criminal. He's a bad guy. Well, here's what the people in Mexico, have to say about this. Trump wants to attack cartels. Many in Mexico, many Mexicans welcome it. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has repeatedly insisted that she will not allow the U.S. military to fight drug cartels inside her nation's borders. It's not going to happen, Sheinbaum said last month, after President Trump yet again threatened such an operation. We don't want intervention by any foreign government. But while Sheinbaum passionately defends her nation's sovereignty, recent polls and interviews from across Mexico show that a significant number of people here, in fact, welcome more American involvement in their country's battle against organized crime, including having U.S. boots on the ground. I don't want that. You don't want that. But we want to help defeat the cartels, and we can do it with drone strikes and things like that. But anyway, slightly more than half of Mexicans surveyed by polling firm Mitkoski said they believe U.S. authorities should enter Mexican territory to fight organized crime and arrest its leaders. A third respondent to the poll by El Francesco's newspaper said they support the deployment of U.S. military in Mexico to combat the cartels. Let the Americans come so this hell that so many families in Mexico have been experiencing their whole lives can finally end. How's that? How's that for something that America should do? End the hell that millions of Mexicans are forced to live because nobody gives a damn about them. Donald Trump does. Donald Trump cares. It's very embarrassing to say that Mexico can't do it alone, said Jose Santilla, a 38-year-old graphics designer in Mexico City. But the situation with the drug cartels has clearly spiraled out of control. A powerful army is needed to confront them, and the United States has one. The U.S. has already unleashed its military on suspected drug traffickers in the Pacific and Caribbean, killing at least 83 people. For months, Trump and his team have been floating the prospect of U.S. strikes on suspected criminals and drug laboratories in Mexico, and that may end up happening. And as I said, what do the Dems do? They try to stop it. Why? Why would the Democratic Party, which if you go to wethepeopleconvention.org, on the front page, and you click the little button that says the Dems are owned by the Chinese, and you will get 100 links to stories documenting how the Chinese have given money to Barack Obama, Hakeem Jeffries, Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, and to Republicans like Mitch McConnell and others. They bought our leadership to bribe these traitors to destroy our nation. That's what happened, folks. In your and my lifetime. That's what happened. That's what we're trying to stop and fix. Okay? The Dems work for the commies. The goal is to destroy the United States. That's the goal. Not to care about minorities and care about the poor people. It's all a lie. It's a psyop. The fight is real simple. It's between individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity and the right for us to determine our lives, or total government control, being a slave to the state with our rulers being the commies. That's the fight. That's what you are fighting against and for. And we're winning now because you and I paid the price last year and elected Donald Trump and took the House and the Senate. And boy, are we going to have to fight this year to do it again in November 2026. So let's go on to some other things that are tied to this whole story, and then we'll move on from this. Kristi Noem announced that they've completed the hiring of 10,000 ICE agents. Our 10,000th ICE officer will be on the job within the next 10 days, she told President Donald Trump during a cabinet meeting. So we have hired 10,000. We have hundreds of thousands of applications. We've got this going now, and the big, beautiful bill funds it. The goal is to deport at least 21 million illegal aliens. We've supported about 2.5 million this year, but we didn't have 10,000 ICE agents trained and ready to go. Yeah, you can expect this is going to accelerate in 2026. And again, I said, what do the Dems do? They fight us all the way. We talked last week, and we'll talk a little more about the Minnesota disaster with the Somalis and stuff. And so ICE is going to Minneapolis. Wait, what? Minneapolis police chief urges residents to call 911 on ICE agents. Yeah, seriously. This dirtbag police chief who should resign immediately went on TV and told people they should call 911. Apparently, many people in Minnesota are certifiably insane, considering that they voted for Tim Walz as their governor and have veered about as left as any state in the union. The latest to spout ridiculousness is Minneapolis police chief Brian O'Hara, who advised citizens on Tuesday to call 911 if they see ICE agents kidnapping people. See, that's the left's lie. That's the next lie, right? They're arresting American citizens. No, they're not. They're arresting people who are not American citizens. They're just kidnapping people. They're just, taking kids off the street. No, they know who they're going after, and they're criminals. ICE raids reported heated up in the city on Wednesday after massive welfare fraud was uncovered by the feds, much of it committed by the large Somali community here. City leaders are freaking out over the ICE presence and apparently would rather let illegal aliens just go about their day. What's actually scarier than possibly dangerous illegal aliens, according to the chief, is the prospect of random people in mass kidnapping people for no apparent reason, which I have seen exactly 0 reports of. Tom Homan basically said, try to stop us. You're going to prison, police chief, if you try to stop us. You do not have the legal right to interfere with federal officers imposing and implementing federal law. The Dems are not for America, folks. They're for the overthrow of America, and this is proof of it. Just keep sharing that with people so they know. All right, on to some happier stories. On to some good stuff. This was freaking awesome. And I am shocked. I heard Glenn Beck go on saying, I'm not really sure I'm comfortable with this. Shut up. Michael and Susan Dell donate, get this, folks, $6.2 billion to 25 million U.S. kids. Wow. Wow. Okay? Why is this so wow? Okay. Let me explain it to you. Billionaires Michael and Susan Dell pledged $6.2 billion Tuesday to provide 25 million American children under 10 an incentive to claim the new investment accounts for children created as part of Donald Trump's tax and spending legislation in the Big Beautiful Bill. The historic gift has little precedent, with few single charitable commitments in the past 24 years exceeding even $1 billion, much less $6 billion, announced on Giving Tuesday. The Dells believe it's the largest single private commitment made to U.S. children in history. Its structure is also unusual. Get this is important. Essentially, it builds on the Trump Accounts program, where the U.S. Department of Treasury will deposit $1,000 into investment accounts set up by Treasury for American children born between January 1st of 2025 and December 31st of 2028. The Dell's gift will use the same Trump account system, infrastructure, to give $250 to each qualified child under 10 years of age for the 250th anniversary of America's founding next July 4th. And here's the kicker. To make sure that it's giving to the most needed, the deal is they're only going to give it to children under 10 in zip codes where the median household income is under $150,000 a year. It's awesome. Listen to this short clip of President Trump and the Dells announcing this. This is a true American greatness.
On behalf of the United States of America, I want to thank you both, and I want to thank all three. But I want to thank you both because you've been friends of mine, and it's a spectacular couple. This is really an amazing people. These are unique. And I'd like to have you come up and say a couple of words and tell us what you have in mind, because what you have in mind is good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great honor to be with you here in the White House. And, when you passed the Invest America Act on July 4th of this year, we were really inspired to see that happen. And this is something that, Brad had first mentioned to us in 2021. We thought it was a great idea then, and it's amazing that it happened. And we also saw that this act would become a platform. And, we believe the smartest investment that we can make is an investment in children. And this act has created a platform for families and friends and communities and companies and philanthropists to contribute to these accounts to create a savings and opportunity and hope and prosperity for tens of millions of children in this country. And Susan and I are super excited to announce our $6.25 billion gift to 25 million American children, 10 and under, and our gift will cover most of the children that are 10 and under that are not part of the federal program, the 0 to 2-year-olds, and who also live in zip codes where the median income is $150,000 or less. And I have spoken with a number of other wealthy Americans, philanthropists, and we are confident that others will join us because we all understand the incredible impact that a gift like this can have on the lives of young Americans.
So that's awesome. And the fact that others will join, I believe that's true, okay? And again, have you ever heard the phrase, don't look a gift horse in the mouth, right? The whole history of that story is somebody gives you a horse and you start looking at their teeth and say, well, I don't think this horse is that healthy. Shut up. Just take the horse. That was why I'm saying to Glenn Beck, who's saying, well, this doesn't help the young Americans right now who need it more, and I'm not sure. No, it's good. It's good. It's now we have, rightly or wrongly, and I think wrongly, and I have a story that will prove that later, we have created these multi-billionaires, and don't cry a tear for Michael and Susan Dell. Folks, they're worth $143 billion. Giving $6.25 billion is like if you had a wealth of $300,000 and you gave $12,700. That's not nothing, but it wouldn't crush you. That tells, this is great, but there's a lot more. And this is like Carnegie and Rockefeller and all those people who were the robber barons, and people felt they stole all their wealth, but then they built libraries and they did things. We need to see a lot more of this. A lot more of this. And what I like about this is it's not the crappy 529 plans that our states run for your college education that they mismanaged. When we did that for our kids, it was supposed to pay for their college. We started when they were like 5 years old, and by the time they were going to college at 18, it was supposed to pay for their whole education. Oh yeah, well, the stock market crashed in 2008, and we can't do that anymore, and it didn't pay for even half. This goes into the stock market, into an index fund that is going to, and I did a little calculation that, if things held historically, the $250 would be worth almost $2,000 in 18 years. But you can donate to it too. And it helps teach capitalism. It gives kids skin in the game. And last week when I was talking about we old folks who took everything, right, from the young people, need to start doing more to help them. Hey, no money's better than old money. If you can start investing when you're 1, you ain't gonna have any worries. Most of you watching this couldn't do that. I sure couldn't. I didn't have a pot to pee in till I was in my 40s, okay? But that's why this is good. Share that story. And what I loved about it is they can't take the money out, okay, until they're 18, but they can use it to start a business. They can start it to buy a home, use it to buy a home. And they keep saying, well, they can, use it to go to college. Yeah, I don't think so. Because if we're lucky enough, there won't be any freaking woke colleges, any colleges left on the planet in 18 years. But even then, it doesn't matter, because this is what the latest poll said about colleges. Poll, in dramatic shift, Americans no longer see four-year college degrees as worth the cost. Just 33% just 33% agree a four-year college degree is worth the cost because people have a better chance to get a good job and earn more money over their lifetime. In other words, it used to be you had to go to college to earn a nice living. Only 33% believe that more now, and they're being lied to. They're not seeing the facts. While 63% agree more with the concept that it's not worth the cost because people often graduate without specific job skills and with a large amount of debt to pay off, and so you shouldn't do it. You and I, we did this. We broke the woke, lefty, prison of only college, which destroyed our country because we funneled the best and the brightest of our children into indoctrination camps where they destroyed America. That's what we did. They led us down this path and we didn't stop them. But you and I have stopped them now. Now kids are going to get a skilled trade. And there's all kinds of programs going forward to that, and I've been pushing that. And we'll talk more about that in future podcasts. But just remember, you and I did that. That's why you listen to the show. That's why you take action to educate people so that we can change the direction of our nation in a more positive way and break the woke ideology and the left's control of our institutions. Okay? Speaking of which, oh baby, you had to love this. Trump cuts costs of cars by terminating insane leftist mileage mandates. This was awesome. Historic reset. Trump terminates Biden fuel standards that squeezed auto companies. President Donald Trump announced Wednesday he is resetting federal fuel standards that were used by President Joe Biden's administration to impose severe regulations on American car manufacturers. They were intended to do one thing, to get rid of fossil fuel cars, to make it go all electric and have to buy all the lithium and rare earth minerals from China. That was a Chi-Com effort, right? The climate communists, the goal, the main thing that makes mankind free is cheap energy. And this whole scam was intended to stop people from becoming free so they could dominate us. The president unveiled the changes in the Oval Office, promising that the reset of the Biden-era fuel economy standards will save American families a combined $109 billion. The president said he will realign the standards with real-world market conditions. Combined with the insane electric vehicle mandate, Trump said, Biden's burdensome regulations helped cause the price of cars to soar more than 425%. That's right. A freaking car costs $50,000. That should not be. That should not be. And in one case, they went up 18% in 1 year. Trump said, today we are taking on one more step to kill the Green New scam. The president added his administration's actions is expected to save the typical consumer at least $1,000 off the price of a new car, and we think substantially more than that. Plus, don't forget, in the big, beautiful bill, you can write off the interest on car loans from your taxes. How about that to help you buy a new car? And then he's promoting, he said in the press conference, it kind of shocked some of the people there, he's going to get rid of the regulations because in Europe and in Japan and in Korea, they have these tiny cars that are made for, commuters in cities and stuff that are safe. But folks, they're like 20 grand or less. They weren't legal here. Trump just made them legal, right? That's how you fight affordability. The cost of a car was ridiculous. All the energy, all the things they had to do, like, you have to make the car stop running when you're at a stoplight and then start up again so you could, save fuel. Bull crap. That was insanity. Now, you and I can buy the car we want. Like Trump said, I like electric cars. He said, I like gas cars. I like hybrid cars. You can buy the car you want. That's called individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity, not commie control. Trump just did that. You should share that story. And then the other, we're talking about truth and lies. The economy is a disaster. Trump's doing a terrible job. Prices are still too high. He was all Joe Biden's fault. Joe Biden had an average interest of 5% over 4 years and is as high as 9%. Interest rates are 2.8, or not interest, inflation of 9%. Inflation now is 2.8%. And so the economy's not horrible. It's not great, but it's getting better. But their narrative is that it's not. Record Black Friday sales show economy is good, exposing the lefty lies. When Dems lie about the bad economy, AI helps drive, while Dems lie about the bad economy, AI helps drive record $11.8 billion in sales on Black Friday online spending. Trashing the economy is how the Dems keep Trump's poll numbers down. It's up to you and I to expose the lie. Sharing this story does that. AI-powered shopping tools help drive a surge in U.S. online spending on Black Friday as shoppers bypass crowded stores and turn to chatbots to compare prices and secure discounts amid concerns about tariff-driven price hikes. U.S. shoppers spent a record $11.8 billion online, up 9.1% from last year on this year's biggest shopping day, according to Adobe Analytics, which tracks 1 trillion visits that shoppers make to online retailers. But here's the negative spin in this story, okay? Because this story, was from NBC News, I think it was, and the story. So they said, but they stuck this in there. The holiday shopping season arrives amid tighter budgets, unemployment nearing a 4-year high, U.S. consumer confidence sagging to a 7-month low, and price tags that have shoppers watching every dollar. Well, if that's true, how come it went up and not down if those things were all true? Because they're not all true. They're not all true. We are expecting Americans, they are projecting that you and I, our fellow Americans, are going to spend $1 trillion this Christmas season on gifts. $1 trillion, the highest ever. So, yeah, things aren't cheap, but how do you make them cheap when they drove them all up like Biden did with the car prices? You don't do that like that. You don't wave a magic wand. You've got to get the market to adjust. That's what Trump's doing. So that was really good news too. You should share, because they're telling you the economy sucks. Just share that story with them. Use the share links on our website at wethepeopleconvention.org. You go to that story, click the little share icon, and it'll give you a link to that story that you can text someone or email someone. We make it easy for you to educate your fellow citizens. Fight the lies with truth. That's your job. That's all of our jobs when you're living in a world full of lies. Okay, a couple more stories and we'll take our break here for the show. This was really important. Supreme Court to decide constitutionality of birthright citizenship. The Supreme Court announced on Friday that they will hear arguments about birthright citizenship this April, and the decision is expected by June. The citizenship clause, this is the Trump's position, the citizenship clause of the 14th Amendment was adopted to grant citizenship to freed slaves and their children, not to children of illegal aliens, birth tourists, and temporary visitors. That's the fight. This is critical to our future. The left, once again, when they were in charge of the Supreme Court and had radical judges who didn't interpret the Constitution the way it was written, but who tried to change it, decided, the court said, oh, yeah, I just flew in from China, or I just flew in from wherever, Mexico, El Salvador, Afghanistan, Europe even, and we just flew into Los Angeles, and, oh, my wife's pregnant. Oh, geez, she's having her baby right now. Whoop, she had the baby. That baby's an American citizen according to the 14th Amendment. No, they're not. Millions of people have come into our country through this bogus claim. It needs to stop. I'm asking you, as the first direct ask of this show, to pray on this, to put it in your prayers, that the Supreme Court reads the law as it was written, and the people who originated the law said it was not for illegal aliens, it was for the slaves and their children. We need this win in June. Please pray on that. It's really important. We got another good court ruling on Friday. Federal judge grants DOJ request to release Epstein grand jury documents. Right? This is the big canard again. The left, it's like that, when you're going to stop beating your wife type thing. The left is saying, oh, Donald Trump's covering up the Epstein files because he's implicit in it. Well, until it's released, they could claim he's a pedophile. And they do. Go on X, go on social media, TikTok, whatever. They claim every damn thing about Trump with no proof. But the problem was they knew you couldn't release it. So what did Trump do? He signed an executive order, and the judge in Florida just did this. A federal judge in Florida ordered the release of grand jury transcripts from the Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell sex trafficking case, citing a new federal law. U.S. District Court Judge Rodney Smith said that on Friday that he is going to have the grand jury documents released with a December 19th deadline for full compliance under Epstein File Transparency Act that Trump signed. So Trump signed this new law, and the new judge said, that gives me the legal right to release them. The law explicitly bars withholding records solely to prevent embarrassment or reputational harm to public figures, government officials, or foreign dignitaries. This marks the first successful unsealing of Epstein-related grand jury records under law, with further cases pending in New York and other states. This is a big deal, because when it comes out, it's not going to be Donald Trump that's embarrassed. It's going to be the characters who've been fighting this forever. And then to close with this, another canard or another fake story that the lies and the truth. Donald Trump he fell asleep in a meeting. Look at it, he's walking with a limp. Oh, he's got these marks. Donald Trump needs to be investigated with his health, right? It's such bullcrap, such a lie. And again, because President Trump tells the truth and his team tells the truth and he's not hiding anything, can't be more transparent than Donald Trump, let me tell you. We'll talk about his staff meeting at the end of the show. So what happened? White House doctor releases results of Trump's preventative MRI after weeks of speculation. There was no speculation, folks. There was no speculation. There was just a left-wing psyop to fool stupid people who read the Washington Post, the New York Times, Axios, Politico, and all these things, watch ABC and NBC News, who were getting lied to try to do what? What's the color revolution, right? What did the six seditionists do when they did a video saying, Donald Trump, don't obey illegitimate orders? The goal is to separate the leadership from their army, to separate citizens from the president they elected overwhelmingly. So you keep feeding this stuff to create doubt. So when you try to do the revolution, that's what the color revolutions are about, people won't support the people in charge. Okay? Well, let's just wrap this baby up because it's real simple. This is from Physician to the President of the United States. There's a letter. Physician to the President of the United States. To Carolyn Levitt. Subject. Summary of President Donald J. Trump's advanced imaging results for immediate release. As part of President Donald J. Trump's comprehensive executive physical, advanced imaging was performed because men in his age group benefit from a thorough evaluation of cardiovascular and abdominal health. The purpose of this imaging is preventative, to identify issues early, confirm overall health, and ensure he maintains long-term vitality and function. President Trump's cardiovascular imaging is perfectly normal. There is no evidence of arterial narrowing, impaired blood flow, or abnormalities in the heart or major vessels. The heart chambers are normal in size, and the vessel walls appear smooth and healthy, and there's no signs of inflammation or clotting. Overall, his cardiovascular system shows excellent health. No surprise to me, because of the schedule that guy keeps. Man, like I said, I think he has two hearts. His abdominal imaging is also perfectly normal. All major organs appear to be very healthy and well perfused. Everything evaluated is functioning within normal limits with no acute or chronic concerns. Okay? This will be on our podcast page, so you can share this letter with anybody that brings this up to you who wants to be a liar. Okay? We don't accept the lies. We don't accept the lies. All right. I hope you enjoyed the first half of the show. We got a lot of really good stuff in the second half as well, so I hope you'll stick with us. But you've been listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion Podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski, and we'll be back with you after these messages about our organization. The We the People Convention News and Opinion radio program is paid for by donors like you. You can donate to the We the People Convention and support our cause by going to wethepeopleconvention.org or by sending your check in any amount to We the People Convention, P.O. Box 6211, Akron, Ohio 44312. When you're playing a video, including our podcast, you'll see this little cloud button, and if you click it, it'll actually download the video to your hard disk. And this works on our podcast page as well. If you're playing our podcast, and it's going to be loud, so I won't play it for much, but there's our podcast playing, and you can see this little, download button. Okay. The other thing you got to notice on our podcast page is that there's a link here where you can send me a message about this podcast. Hey, it was great. Hey, I didn't like it. Something was wrong, or here's a correction, that kind of thing. You can use that link. And then these are the stories that I covered in this particular podcast. And you'll see there's links that go to the stories, to the articles that I used in reporting on that. So you can click on that. You'll also see that you can sign up for our emails and text messages, but you can also watch our podcast on Roku TV and on Amazon Fire TV. And these are the instructions for doing that. So this is all on our podcast page, right on the front page where the yellow button was. So if you click there, this is our podcast page. These are the instructions for watching on Roku TV or Amazon Fire. And I watch our podcast on TV. It just feels more comfortable. So you can do that. We're also on Rumble. If you go to Rumble, you should join Rumble. And it's Tom Z at WTPC. You'll see our podcast there. So you can get us a lot of different ways, including on Apple iTunes. And then this is an audio version of our podcast. If you click here, it'll just play the audio of the podcast. It will not, show you the video. So people can, listen to that while they're jogging or, working out, working in the yard, or just relaxing and just want to listen to the audio and not watch the video. And again, this is available on phone, on your iPad, on your laptop, on your computer, any way you want. And you can share, this, whatever you see. If you're on a page that you really like, and you see an article that you think, geez, I've got to share this article, with someone in my family. You can send them an email by clicking on the little envelope. You can post it on Parler or MeWe. If you click on this, you get all kinds of options, where you can put it on Twitter or Facebook, whatever, which we don't support, but you can do whatever you want. So we ask that you share what you see on our We the People Convention site, and that you get more people to look at it. Because that's the whole idea here, to help educate people, inform them, and then, as I said before, Link, we're not just about talk, we're about action. And in my podcast every week, which is published every Saturday, so if the new podcast usually comes out every Saturday, and in that podcast, I will ask you to do certain things that will help protect and defend your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. So that's the We the People Convention website. Come back often, use it to be informed, and share it with others. Thanks a lot. All right, and we're back for the second half of our podcast, and we're glad you're with us. A couple things about that promo. We are on X at Tom Z WTPC. We are back on YouTube at We the People Convention or Tom Z WTPC. We post videos there. Our podcast is there. We are back on Facebook at We the People Convention and Tom Zawistowski. So you can find us wherever you are. I wanted to tell you about something that I did this week that I think is good. Because last week, or the week before that, I think it was, I was, one of our viewers and longtime supporters said, Tom, the people who are new don't really understand this organization. They don't know how important we've been, how much we've done. Okay, and I talked about us, defeating Barack Obama on the IRS Tea Party, targeting case, the fact that we stopped the banning of fracking in the United States, that we, elected Donald Trump here by winning Ohio when nobody thought we could, that we supported January 6th prisoners and helped get the pardons, all these things. So on the front page at wethepeopleconvention.org, I put a new button that says view our history. And it's not totally comprehensive because we've done a lot of things, but I think many of you don't remember a lot of things we've done, and you might want to go to wethepeopleconvention.org and click on that and just take a look, because it's been a hell of a ride. It's been a hell of a ride, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished, and you should be too, and you should be proud to be a member. And if you're a donor, you should be really proud, because your money got duplicated, got magnified through this organization like few others could. We punch way above our weight. And so your donations really went far. And I've gotten a lot of feedback lately. I had a conversation with one donor this week who said, Tom, I've stopped giving to anybody but you and Turning Point. I've gotten rid of all the other donations because things are tough and they've got to prioritize, okay? But I think that's justified. And as we go into 2026, folks, we're in for the fight of our lives. I'm very concerned. I'm very worried. And I'm going to refer to that here in a story, connected to a story from this week. But we got to gear up. You got to understand all that we did last year in 2025, we're going to have to do that and more, because they're going to come at us with everything they've got. But if we can really beat them, beat the left, beat the Marxists, beat the anti-American, cartels in 2026, then we're going to have something going. Then we're going to have it. And there's a lot of reason to suggest we can do it. And there's a lot of, wind at our sails. We'll talk about that in the second half of this podcast, okay? So let me begin with some things that I always say, we're all not just talk, we're action. And I'm going to ask you to do some things. So we'll start with this story. Okay, conservative leaders tell White House to stop AI copyright theft. This was an important letter, and it didn't get enough coverage again, and that's why you need to share that story. You need to go to wethepeopleconvention.org and read the letter and then share it. And then write to President Trump and your senators and congressmen, and I have a link on the story that tells you about it. But basically, Steve Bannon and other top conservatives urge White House to reject big tech's fair use push to justify AI copyright theft. They call it un-American and absurd. Big tech, the letter's pretty lengthy. It's very good. It's going to educate you, okay, about the threat of AI to Americanism, to our Constitution, about what? Individual property rights. Big tech says it's fair use. It is fair use under our federal copyright laws for them to steal and profit from every creative work in America to, quote, train or otherwise benefit their artificial intelligence machines. We must steal like China to compete against China, they essentially argue. This is un-American and absurd. We must compete and win the global AI race the American way by ensuring we protect creators, children, conservatives, and communities. We, the undersigned conservatives and American First advocates, urge you to reject calls by progressive groups and special interests to intervene in copyright litigation on behalf of alleged infringers. Such intervention would harm American workers, contradict the Trump administration's artificial intelligence and trade policy, weakening U.S. soft power, and promote Chinese economic espionage. Okay? So you got to read the whole thing because they make a hell of a case, cite the Constitution. Mark Davis is part of this. It's a long list. I was not asked to be on it. A lot of our normal people were not asked to be on it, which I was a little disappointed in, but we support it. But the bottom line is this. These tech companies are now valued at $20 trillion freaking dollars. That literally the stock market that many of us are benefiting from has been driven by the investment in AI, in NVIDIA, in OpenAI, in Tesla, in Google, in Meta, in whatever. It's insane that they say we can take every song, every drawing, every movie, every book, every text you make, everything you put on X or on Facebook or type into Google, and use it to train our AI to sell back to you without paying you. Nothing. That's bull. We need to fight that. You and I need to fight this. They need to pay up. If you're worth $20 trillion, don't tell me you can't pay, $1 trillion or $2 trillion to the copyright holders. I got some good feedback from you guys last week about the Christian AI, song thing. But none of our politicians have been fighting for this. They've been Ted Cruz is the worst. He's just giving them a blank check. Oh, just like they did with Section 230 to protect them from being sued for what they did to censor us. They're doing it again, or they're trying to. And they're not getting away with it. Matter of fact, we had a big victory that Steve Bannon talked about this week. They were trying to slip this law that would prohibit states from regulating AI in their states. They were trying to slip a federal law into the National Defense Authorization Bill that has to be passed like next week. And we went nuts and called the senators and stuff, and they took it out. But they're still going to bring it back. And they're not doing enough to protect us. But to prove that we're right about this, just this morning, I get this article, exclusive. Meta strikes multiple AI deals with news publishers. Meta on Friday said it has struck several commercial AI data agreements with news publishers ranging from USA Today, People Magazine, CNN, Fox News, The Daily Caller, Washington Examiner. The new agreement allows Meta to access content from its partners to provide real-time answers to queries from users about news and current events. So this is the problem. See, AI is great, but most people want to use it to get answers to current problems. But if they don't have access to all the news agencies' data, they can't provide those answers, and their product's not worth as much. So what's Meta doing? They're going to pay for it. Like it previously announced deal with Reuters, the news agreements are multi-year deals where publishers are compensated for the use of their content. Over time, the company plans to add more news partners and topics while expanding their news features for users looking to access real-time information. We should get paid when they scan, when Google, we're on YouTube. I told you, we're back on YouTube, what I didn't feel comfortable about. But I guarantee you, Google is taking every word in my podcast, in our podcast, in this podcast, in the video, and putting it in their large language models to resell what we say. We should be compensated for this, all right? It is notable that Meta is partnering with conservative news organizations such as Fox News, The Daily Caller, The Washington Examiner, because of its complicated history with making news partnership decisions. In 2016, Facebook, owned by Meta, was accused of censoring conservative stories in its trending topics feature. That allegation, which it denied, kicked off years of scrutiny from Republicans with the tech giant, was biased against conservatives. They were, absolutely. But Section 230 protected them, right? That law has got to be repealed, damn it. It's got to be repealed. When the company launched its news tab in 2018, it included conservative outlets such as Breitbart as a source. This is the way you do it in America. If you use our stuff, you pay us. That's not an unreasonable ask. But Steve Bannon and conservative leaders had to write to Pam Bondi, and I want you to write to President Trump and say, wake up! America first means Americans first. You got all these AI guys crawling all over the White House in Mar-a-Lago, and who's representing us? Well, we've got to represent us. You and I, second ask of the show, go to this story, read the letter, share the letter, click on the link, and write a note to President Trump and say, we demand you protect our rights. Very simple. Very simple. Next thing, and we've had controversy among our memberships on this. I got it. I ain't backing down. I'm not going to let you guys win this fight. We're going to win this fight. New bill in Congress could save our children from harms of social media. Congress pushes for nationwide internet age verification plan in effort to protect children from social media. And I have a link on this one. Click support this bill. Click on this to get the address and phone number for your congressman, Senate and House, and say, yes, we support this. Republican lawmakers are proposing a new way to enforce accountability on tech companies to comply with age verification laws despite resistance from websites like Pornhub. The Apple Store Accountability Act, introduced by Senator Mike Lee of Utah and Representative John James of Michigan, proposes a different model, requiring app stores themselves to verify users' ages and pass that information on to the apps when they are downloaded. Okay, interesting twist. Instead of making each app and company have to verify your age, they're saying, let's go to the source. Google Store, Apple Store, we know your age. And you think they don't know your damn age already? If you have an Apple ID, you got to send them all kinds of information. Okay? So this makes sense. The bill is part of a broader push in Congress to tighten safeguards for minors online and has earned support from major tech companies, including Facebook, parent Meta, Pinterest, and Snap. Pinterest CEO Bill Reddy argues that one standard would simplify the process and reduce the confusion created by a patchwork of state requirements. The need for federal standards is urgent, he said. I think most people at most of these companies probably do want to protect kids. Senator Lee said, adding that support from tech companies like Pinterest makes a big difference. I put on this, on this story, a section where I said, dig deeper, all right? Dig deeper, and I put links to stories that we've had on our website for months that says, we must stop the carnage caused by social media. Click to watch. Action alert, tell your House members to pass COSA now. Read this story. Act, we must ban smartphones and social media use by children. That's the video with Jordan Peterson and that the professor who did all the research on the damage of social media. Read, Ron DeSantis banned social media use by children in Florida. Go deeper on this. However, the proposal faces resistance from civil liberties groups and digital rights advocates. Critics warn that compulsory age verification could limit access to lawful online content, raising First Amendment concerns. They also cite significant privacy risks, arguing that systems requiring users to submit sensitive personal information could expose themselves, their data, to data breaches or misuse. Two things. One, your data is already being exposed to data breaches. It's like every week something happens where it's AT&T or your bank or whoever, Kmart or somebody, not Kmart, well, how old am I? Yeah, Walmart or something like that, their data is breached. That's not an argument. And then online, our members, you guys push back and say, this is against my rights. I shouldn't have to prove my age to use these websites. And I say, then why do you have to show your age to buy a gun? Why do you have to show your driver's license, to buy alcohol, to buy cigarettes? Because we're protecting children. It's not an infringement on your rights. It's not. And the fact that you make this argument to me when you can read the data, this isn't even arguable. We have destroyed two generations of children. Why can't you get anyone to work in America today? How come of that? Why is that? You know why? Because social media is destroying the minds of our children. They're committing suicide. They're depressed. I just had lunch with a dear friend and big supporter of ours who was telling me about a 24-year-old kid in his company who was also working to become a firefighter, had just passed his paramedics thing, 24 years old. He's at a party last week, and he goes out in his truck and shoots himself in the head. How do you think that happened? It happened because of social media. It happened because we, the people, did not stop our politicians from being bought by big tech. Who did this? That's got to end. You got to stop your resistance to these laws and get behind it. I don't know how I can make a better case. Go read that story. and read those links I gave you. And if that doesn't convince you, then I'm sorry. We're just going to have to agree to disagree. All right. On to another good story. Man, things were happening this week. This podcast was really tough to put together because there's so much going on. This is really good news. City of San Francisco sues major food companies for pushing unhealthy, ultra-processed foods. San Francisco, filed this lawsuit alleging companies engineered addictive, also ultra-processed foods despite known health risks, pushing costs onto public systems and taxpayers. When I saw this story, I put it on X, I posted it on our website, and I said, this is what we voted for. This is what MAHA wants. We want healthy, fairly priced food because you can't buy it because all the effort is in driving profitability by using chemicals instead of natural foods to produce your food. If you want to eat healthy like I've had to do to save my life after my heart attack 2 years ago, it's expensive. It's hard to buy good food. We need to change that. This lawsuit is going to help change that. I applaud this. Watch this video.
They're on nearly every shelf in nearly every grocery store across the country. Ultra-processed foods now make up over 50% of the American diet.
Our case is about companies who design food to be harmful and addictive.
In San Francisco today, City Attorney David Chu announced the first government lawsuit of its kind against 11 companies that manufacture ultra-processed foods, including breakfast titan Kellogg and beverage maker Coca-Cola, accusing them of using unfair and deceptive marketing to sell food.
We've known for a long time that the ingredients in many of these ultra-processed foods are unhealthy. Why now?
We have all suspected for a long time that food that is not food were likely not good for us, but it took many years for the science to catch up.
Research has linked ultra-processed foods to obesity, type 2 diabetes, and cancer. In a statement, a trade group representing many of the companies named in the lawsuit said there is currently no agreed-upon scientific definition of ultra-processed foods, and that calling them unhealthy is misleading to consumers.
There's a clear definition in California law on what ultra-processed foods are. We look forward to having that discussion in court.
And San Francisco has a history of taking on big business. They previously sued and won multi-million-dollar lawsuits against big tobacco, lead paint, and opioid manufacturers.
Elizabeth Cook, thanks so much.
That's great. That's great. That video will be on our podcast page so you can share it. But this is what we want. We have to fight. Unfortunately, it does. Why wasn't our government protecting us from this? Instead of, remember I did the story about what is called generally accepted as safe law, where they created this law that said, well, things that have been used for hundreds of years are generally accepted safe. You don't have to prove they're safe, right? Like, I think it was like flour and wheat and stuff like that, okay? Except, what did our government allow them to do? They started to just pile on all these things that were never tested to be proven safe to be on that list. Right? That story said, the company said there's no, agreed upon definition of ultra-processed foods and they haven't been proven to be unsafe. Yeah, that's intentional. You did that on purpose, just like the tobacco companies did with nicotine and addiction. You know what they did. It's criminal. Now, we're trying to play nice, and President Trump and Robert F. Kennedy are just asking you to voluntarily make changes. If you don't, listen up. Procter & Gamble in Cincinnati, General Mills, all you guys, listen up. If you don't do it because it's the right thing to do, you're going to go to prison. Because if we investigate this, we're going to find that you did it on purpose and you knew what you were doing and you're going to be liable for, how about obesity? How much would the bill be for obesity? Do it the right way, kids, okay? Had an interesting email exchanges from people about kids. Those who don't want me to use the word kids, you were outvoted. I got a lot of text messages and emails saying, I love it when you call us kids. So anyway, we'll use it judiciously. All right, speaking of kids, last week, I made a big big statement about we've got to be like Hungary. We've got to help promote families. We got to make life affordable. If we could make it inexpensive to have children, we'd have all the kids we need. But it was never a priority. And I said, we as a nation need to change rules and laws to help that. I got pushback from some of you saying it shouldn't be the government's, should have anything to do with it. It's individual responsibility. But no. I mean, just like I said, you prevent kids from getting tobacco and guns and alcohol, all right? So you need to prevent them from being hurt on the internet. But we also can do things in the law that help families without quote-unquote government interference. And so some people were upset because I said in Hungary, the woman who has 4 children is exempt from income tax for the rest of their lives. That's an incentive. It's a good idea. You know why? Because they have 4 kids who are going to pay income tax, which is more than she'll ever pay. It is conservative. But, okay, so, you can argue with me, and please keep the emails coming, info@wethepeopleconvention.org. I love getting them. That's what it's about. You need to hold me accountable. I need to understand what you're thinking. I need to think out what I'm saying to you, because I need to tell you the truth, not sell you a line of ideology. And I work hard to do that, and your feedback tells you that. But here you go. We can't do it, but look what the Chinese are doing. Yeah, the freaking Chinese. China adds tax to condoms as it works to boost birth rates. China will impose a value-added tax on contraceptive drugs and devices, including condoms. For the first time in 3 decades, its latest bid to reverse plunging birth rates that threaten to further slow its economy and, oh, by the way, make the species go extinct. Under the newly revised VAT tax, consumers will pay a 13% levy on items that have been VAT exempt since 1993, with China enforcing a strict one-child policy and actively promoted birth control, which was a huge mistake. At the same time, the revision carves out new incentives for prospective parents by exempting child care services from nurseries to kindergarten, as well as elder care institutions, disability service providers, and marriage-related services from the VAT tax. Again, a government law to promote what they want, marriage and babies. The changes take effect in January. They reflect a broader policy pivot as rapidly aging China shifts from the limiting birth to encouraging people to have more children. The population has shrunk for 3 consecutive years, with just 9.5 million births in 2024, barely half of the 18.8 million registered nearly a decade ago when the one-child policy was lifted. Beijing has rolled out a series of pro-natalist policies, pro-baby policies in response, from offering cash handouts to improve child care services and extending paternity and maternity leave. The country has also announced guidelines to reduce the number of abortions. China is going to reduce abortions, but the Democrat, communist, Marxists in the United States are fighting to have more abortions. As we're going extinct for as a species, let's just kill babies. That's smart. Oh yeah. What they are reducing the number of abortions that are not deemed medically necessary, meaning like really the life of the mother or baby is at stake. It's sharp contrast to the coercive reproductive controls of the one-child era, when abortions and sterilizations were routinely enforced. China's attempt to reverse its birth rate are running into a basic hurdle. China is one of the priciest countries in which to bring up children, according to a 2024 report by the Population Research Institute in Beijing. Yeah, you can't have kids because we didn't care about the cost of it. And now even the commies are on it. You think maybe you ought to write to your governor, your state legislature? You should write to your congressman and write to your senators, House and Senate, and say, what the hell are we doing to make having children less expensive? What are we doing? And let's get on it. There's no time. We're dying. And there's a lot of people who want that. People who want to rule over you want that. All right. So that was kind of an international story. You guys who watch regularly know we try to do some international stuff. So I don't have a lot this week. We did Venezuela. There's a China story. This is about a very good story from Israel. Iron Beam laser system is about to rewrite air defense, crushing drones and rockets for pennies. Within weeks, Israel will field its first operational high-powered laser batteries, adding a cheap, rapid answer to drones, UAVs, and rockets developed in deep secrecy at Raphael Iron Beam. Iron Beam promises to transform air defense and slash interception costs. Listen to this. This is where we're going. This is where the whole world's going. The Shahed 101 is one particularly wicked piece of Iranian UAV hardware. It is 1.6 meters long and has 2 meter wingspan and a carbon fiber body that makes it very hard to detect on radar. It is launched from Lebanon, slices through the sky in a chilling silence thanks to its electric motor, flies very far, up to 800 kilometers, and very low, almost brushing the treetops. Its belly, it carries a cruel bomb weighing about 8 kilograms. When it reaches its target, the Shahed 101 glides straight into it and explodes on contact with its shrapnel warhead, whose only purpose is to kill as many people as possible at once. It is a flying death machine, efficient and cheap, developed by Revolutionary Guard scientists with one central goal in mind: to hit as many Israeli soldiers as possible. And indeed, soldiers serving in the northern border learned to recognize the Shahed's 101 spine-chilling buzz and also understood that there was no truly effective answer to this weapon until now. A little more than a year ago, that balance of terror was broken. It was in the evening hours when soldiers of Dragon Battalion 946 in the north spotted a threat hovering over their sector. Dragon is a tactical battalion belonging to the Air Defense Array, reestablished after nearly 20 years since the previous battalion with the same name was disbanded. That night, the moment they had been waiting for finally arrived. Inside the battery's operation trailer, they tracked the target tensely, then came to alert, then the lock, and then came the launch. When the system was activated, no roar of the Tamir interceptor missiles was heard outside. There was no terrifying boom of an arrow launch either. In fact, aside from the soldiers' straining breath inside the trailer and the radio calls, there was no sound at all. At first, nothing could be seen, but those minutes will enter into history as the time of the first operational launch of the Israelis' laser weapon system, not missile. And suddenly, about 2 kilometers away, the UAV from Lebanon was violently knocked sideways in a silent blow. It tried to stabilize, but its broken wing, with its tip hanging helplessly, left it no chance. UAV spun on its axis, its nose pointed down, went to the spiral, and fell like a stone to the ground. The next sound was a shout of joy in the operation trailer, which could be heard from far away. They were justified shouts. Never before had anyone managed to bring down airborne weapons using a laser beam in operational activity. Everyone understood it was an event that changed the entire game, a real revolution. It literally cost pennies to shoot down these drones, when the U.S. is using missiles that cost millions of dollars. That's ending right now. Great story. Great story. This is not such a great story, but hopefully we'll have a great ending when Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar and all of them go to prison. Tim Walz accused of enabling, covering up Somali Medicaid fraud by his own government workers. This was a wild story that came out on X because of who did it. A group of around 400 Minnesota Department of Human Services employees is accusing Governor Tim Walz of enabling and then attempting to cover up a massive Medicaid fraud scheme enacted by members of the state's Somali immigration community. We talked about this last week. They stole billions of dollars in fraudulent claims, sent much of it back to Somalia, which went to Islamic terrorist groups. Taxpayer dollars in the U.S. were stolen and sent to terrorist groups. We talked about that last week. Then attempting to cover up a massive Medicaid fraud scheme enacted by members of the state's Somali immigrant community. The claims shared on social media through the X account representing the government workers allege that Governor Walz retaliated against whistleblowers who attempted to expose the fraud. The post on X, which I posted on our Tom Z WTPC account on X, said, Tim Walz is 100% responsible for massive fraud in Minnesota. We let Tim Walz know of the fraud early on, hoping for a partnership in stopping fraud, but no, we got the opposite response, the workers wrote. Tim Walz systemically retaliated against whistleblowers using monitoring, threats, repression, and did his best to discredit fraud reports. Instead of partnership, we got the full weight of retaliation by Tim Walz, certain DFL members and in different media said. In addition to retaliating against whistleblowers, Tim Walz disempowered the Office of the Legislative Auditor, allowing agencies to disregard their audit findings and guidance. Media and politicians supporting Tim Walz or the DFL agenda attacked whistleblowers who were trying to raise red flags of fraudulent activities, they added. About 100 autism clinics in Minnesota are currently being investigated for Medicaid billing fraud involving autism treatments, with the scheme being linked to a number of members of the Somali immigrant community in Minneapolis. It is estimated over $1 billion in taxpayer dollars was stolen through the scheme, and with some of the ill-gotten funds then funneled to Somalia in support of Islamic terrorist organizations such as Al-Qaeda and Al-Shabaab. The money now also appears to have gone to Ilhan Omar and, oh yeah, the Attorney General, Keith Ellison, as well as Tim Walz. Folks, this ain't going away. These guys did it. There's videos showing that they did it. This is, again, the left not helping Americans. They don't give a damn about you folks in Minnesota, to our members in Minnesota. Tim Walz isn't helping you. They're helping the people who are destroying America. And you voted for him. Oh, hey, newsflash. Mike Lindell is going to run for governor of Minnesota against Tim Walz. How about if we get behind that? All you guys in Minnesota? This has got to stop. This is crazy. And speaking of things, that's got to stop, Bernie Moreno from Ohio, who, re-elected last year as a senator, has been awesome. Been doing insanely great work. And he's a former car dealer. And if you saw him, he was in the background of the Trump signing of the bill getting rid of the auto standards. His smile was so big, I thought his face was going to break. Okay? But he did something this week, and he was on Steve Bannon's War Room show, and it's great. A Time for Choosing. Bernie Moreno introduces bill ending dual citizenship. This is long overdue, folks. This is long overdue. On Monday, Senator Bernie Moreno introduced the Exclusive Citizenship Act of 2025. The bill would end the practice of U.S. citizens holding dual citizenship. If passed, it would prohibit any American citizen from maintaining citizenship in another nation. Moreno cited concerns of divided loyalties and national allegiance for the introduction of the bill. At the core of the legislation is, as Moreno mentioned, national allegiance. Some of the details of the bill include U.S. citizens would be prohibited at the same time an individual held a legal status requiring any obligation to another country. In other words, you can't be an American citizen if you're a British citizen, if you're an Indian citizen. Anyone who obtains citizenship in another nation voluntarily after the law took effect would be seen as forfeiting their U.S. citizenship. Anyone who currently holds dual citizenship would have a year to decide which nation are giving your allegiance. Are you a citizen of the United States or of this other country? Moreno, a naturalized citizen himself, having been born in Colombia, said about this bill, one of the greatest honors of my life was when I became an American citizen at age 18, the first opportunity I could do so. It was an honor to pledge an oath of allegiance to the United States of America and only to the United States of America. Being an American citizen is an honor and a privilege, and if you want to be an American, it's all or nothing. It's time to end dual citizenship for good. We are all for that, and let's hope that bill gets support. It won't get any Dem support. Why? Because the Dems hate America. Their allegiance isn't to America. Their allegiance is to China, to Marxism, to communism. That's who Bernie Sanders is allegiance to. That's who OAC's allegiance to, right? That's what this proves. Are you with us or not? Guess what? You shouldn't be able to serve in Congress. Ilhan Omar and the other squad members who say, we are in Congress representing Somalia, immediately they should be thrown out of college. Why? You put your hand on a Bible, and someone want to put it on a Quran, okay, but it should be on the Bible, and you swore an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States. How can you then say you're representing Somalia? Why isn't that reason for removal, Speaker Johnson? Why is that? Okay, but we're taking action. Bernie Murillo is taking action. We're doing great, and this is really important because we've been talking about SNAP since the shutdown, right? And we saw, the thing that blew up with the Dems is they thought, oh, we're going to say if the Republicans are responsible for starving all these children by not giving the SNAP benefits because they shut down the government, which we proved that the Republicans didn't shut down the government, that the Democrats did, but it also made us focus on SNAP. And then we started to see all the abuse that was happening, the theft, that there were 42 million people on food stamps, which is what SNAP is, when there only used to be 21 million, and how that increased after COVID because they didn't ask you to follow the rules. They didn't check you met the requirements. And we need to check. And part of that is getting the states to show us who's on their rolls. Trump administration says it will withhold SNAP money from states led by Democrats if they don't provide the recipient data. That's what happened. So understand, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. The food stamp money goes to the Department of Agriculture and is a fully funded federal program. When it was produced in 1970 or whenever it was, we didn't have the computers and stuff we have today, so they couldn't run the program from the federal government, so they gave it to the states for them to run. Oh yeah, that was a good idea. And so now the states, because it's not their money, have added people to the rolls who aren't qualified so they can steal the money, give it to their buddies who donate it to Democrats, right? That's the whole scam. So the Trump administration said, it's our money. We want to see your voter rolls. We want to see your SNAP rolls. And there was all kinds of evidence. When the red states gave the evidence, the data, that there were dead people, 186,000 dead people or something, getting SNAP benefits, people getting benefits in multiple states. But the Dems didn't want to give their lists over. Oh, I wonder why. Oh, it's a violation of privacy, don't you know? Oh, really? Well, no, it's not. And we don't care what you say because we're going to withhold the money. This was a great statement by our Secretary of Agriculture on the Hill this week.
In February of this year, we asked for all the states for the first time to turn over their data to the federal government to let the USDA partner with them to root out this fraud, to make sure that those who really need food stamps are getting them, but also to ensure that the American taxpayer is protected. 21 states said yes, not surprised. 29 states said yes, not surprisingly, the red states, and that's where all of that data, that fraud comes from. But 21 states, including California, New York, and Minnesota, blue states, continue to say no. So as of next week, we have begun and will begin to stop moving federal funds into those states until they comply and they tell us and allow us to partner with them to root out this fraud and to protect the American taxpayer. As Joe Biden was working to buy an election a year ago, he increased food stamp program funding by 40%. So now as we continue to roll that back.
Yeah, roll that back. I want every dime of that 40% cut, Congress. Cut. What are we doing? She said it. He's buying votes, okay? And then, in this story, the Democrats respond. Marissa Saldivar, a spokesperson for California Governor Gavin Newsom, a Democrat, was skeptical about whether funding will really be taken away. We no longer take the Trump administration's word at face value. We'll see what they actually do in reality, she said in a statement. Cutting programs that feeds America's children is morally repugnant. You know what's morally repugnant? Stealing taxpayer dollars from hardworking Americans to launder to your election cheating machine. That's what's repugnant. Giving food stamps to people who can work and not need them is repugnant. You know what's repugnant, Marissa? I'll tell you what's repugnant. Repugnant is having 500,000 food stamp people getting benefits in more than one state because you don't care to do your job and check. That's what's repugnant. What's repugnant is government theft. But oh no, you think that's great. That's great. That's what separates you from us. You're repugnant, madam, not us. And Trump's people need to do this to a T. It's insane, the race, fraud, and abuse. It's insane. We got to stop it. Okay? Now, so she's doing something that's really important because we need to have those SNAP lists to check. Well, we've been talking about the voter rolls, all right, which they also don't want to give. Election integrity push. DOJ on track to compel voter rolls cleanup in over half of U.S. states. This is Harmeet Dillon again, who we've championed. This organization funded Harmeet Dillon during COVID to fight California, attacking churches and things before she was ever in government. We bet on her. We see early who to bet on, and she's now in this great position. Election integrity push. The sloppiness of this in the election in blue states is no accident. It's on purpose. It's a feature, not a bug, Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights Harmeet Dillon said. The Trump Justice Department is on track to compel more than half of the states in America to clean up their voter rolls and believes sloppiness that left dead people and non-citizens in a position to vote in Democratic-run states is intentional. What we can do as a federal government level is ensure that our federal elections laws are observed. Now remember, our federal laws say only citizens can vote in federal elections, but states have laws that said, well, non-citizens can vote in New York or in California and Arizona in local elections. So they put them on the voter rolls, but then they let them vote in the federal elections too. And this law says they can't be on the voter rolls. You got to come up with a different system. And the goal is to cram as many people on there and make voters who are not particularly engaged, make it easy for someone else to help them fill out their ballots and return it for them, right? Ballot harvesting, can you say that? And for them, when they didn't care enough to do it themselves, she said, we can do at the federal government level is ensure that our federal election laws are observed, and that includes each state's requirement to keep voter rolls clean. This is fundamental and basic. All right, Dillon spoke one day after her division filed lawsuits against 6 Democrat states, Maryland, Delaware, Rhode Island, New Mexico, Washington, and Vermont, seeking to compel them to turn over their voter rolls to her office. The courts are going to hold this up. We're going to get them before next November's election. What do you think that's going to do to the election? Yeah, there's going to be a lot of votes that used to be there that ain't there no more. Yeah. Pretty big deal. And then this came out this week, and I'm really proud of this, and I'd like to claim some responsibility for this. Trump administration strikes deal with Ohio to clean up state voter rolls using federal databases. This is a good story. Ohio Secretary of State Frank LaRose announced the new agreement on Monday, saying it guarantees Ohio access to enhanced federal records for at least 20 years. The deal refers to a federal systemic alien verification for entitlements database, the SAVE database. It's basically the database that combines the Social Security database, which says I'm a citizen, and the Homeland Security database that says I became a naturalized citizen, right? Put them together. Those are all the citizens. Take the voter rolls, compare them, and throw out anybody that's not in there. The Biden administration refused to let us do that. And I worked with Frank LaRose and his staff. I pushed him to go, and they filed a lawsuit. LaRose said Monday's agreement with the Department of Homeland Security guarantees Ohio the capability to obtain valuable, verifiable, and valuable data supporting each citizen's verification of citizenship, as well as the ability to perform bulk verification requests. The Biden administration was literally, when they tried to force him to do it, charging a state like $3 for every request of, is this person a citizen? $3. Because why? They wanted to hide it. Why would you want to hide it? Oh, you're for America, right? No, you're not. You're trying to cheat in elections, and that's how you were doing it. The agreement concludes a lawsuit LaRose filed against the DHS under former President Joe Biden. The previous administration had withheld access to SAVE data and also charged states for access on a pay-per-query basis. LaRose's office has already removed tens of thousands of wrongful voter registrations in Ohio since before the 2024 election. He referred over 1,000 non-citizens to the DOJ for potential prosecution in October after determining that they appeared to have registered to vote unlawfully in Ohio. My hope, my goal, my ask to you who are watching this, to our members across all 50 states, is to take that story from the We the People Convention website and share it with your Secretary of State and say, this has to become the national standard. People, Amazon and these people have databases of every American in the country practically, and they every day they can bang that database against anything, right? So why can't your Secretary of State take the voter registration roll and in real time, when you get voter registrations, check to see if they're citizens? Our candidate for Secretary of State in Ohio, Marcel Sturbridge, who I think is the most qualified person for a state-run office, maybe in Ohio history, Marcel Sturbridge for Secretary of State. I haven't endorsed him yet. We're working on that. We'll see. But I saw him the other night at a fundraiser, and he said what they just did, what Frank LaRose just did was terrific. I want to push it to the local board of election level. Why should you be able to register to vote and then later we take you off? You can't do that at the license bureau for a driver's license, right? If you don't have your papers, if you can't prove you're of right age to get a driver's license, you can't get one. Why should you be able to register to vote and then later us say, well, we're taking you off because you're not a citizen? We should know that up front. This agreement does that. Congratulations, Frank LaRose and your team, for doing that. Every one of you, write to your Secretary of State. Another ask, send that story and say, are you going to do this? And if not, why? There's only one reason you wouldn't do it. You want to cheat. There's only one reason. Get them on the record. Find out if they'll do it. Okay. On to other stories. There's a big, this whole week, we got to win this race in Tennessee to keep control of the House. Marjorie Taylor Greene's retiring, and if we lose this race, oh my goodness, and the Democrats are leading. Republican Matt Van Epps wins Tennessee special election, and it really wasn't close, all right? But I have some things to say about that. This is an important canary in the coal mine. First of all, the woman running against him literally is a freaking lunatic, right? Not unusual for the Dems, right? They recruit these lunatics. But the fact that she even had a chance shows you a lot about our country and our standards for electing people. We don't like, they're stealing our tax. Like, Tom, you talk about all the time, they're doing this wrong, doing that wrong. And then you go and you elect people who don't know anything, who don't even have personal integrity, right? And so this shouldn't have been close, and it wasn't close. But Donald Trump had to do a call to the people in that 7th Congressional District in Tennessee. Clay and Buck, and one of them, I don't know which one, Clay or Buck, is in that district. It was pounding it on a nationwide radio show. Mike Johnson went there and the whole day before the election and was going, door to door and stuff with the candidate. Why do we have to do that? Now, people say, Tom, we're good. The district is a 10-point Republican district, and he won by like 9.2%. But here's the truth. Trump won it by 20%. The turnout between last year and this year, 12-month difference, was only 55% of the turnout last time. That's a problem. That's a big problem. Because, again, we fought. We gave everything. You gave money, time, effort, blood, sweat, tears to win last year. Now, you're just going to not participate? Folks, that ain't going to cut it in 2026. It's not going to cut it. A 55% turnout ain't going to cut it. Because, okay, so that was a plus 10 Republican district, so it was really 1% less. But what about all the districts we won in Michigan and Pennsylvania, in Nevada, and different places where they were even districts, or it was, maybe a Democrat district that was a plus 1 or 2 that we won, the Republican won. They won because you turned out. If you don't turn out, we're going to lose the House. You know what happens if we lose the House? Our country's done. If we lose the House, they've already done it. Hakeem Jeffries, Swalwell, different people, Schumer, we're going to impeach them. We're going to bring charges against Pete Hegseth. We're going to bring charges against individual ICE officers when we get back in power. We're going to destroy America from within if you are dumb enough to give us power over the might of the U.S. government. Can't get any clearer than that, kids. Not good enough, Tennessee. You people in that district, you need to talk about that. You need to talk to your fellow Republicans and say, did you vote? And if you didn't, why not? It's not good enough. Take action to defend your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. This, though, was a really big win. Supreme Court allows Texas to use redistricting map challenge as racially discriminatory. This is a big deal, folks. Again, I said earlier, 2026, we're doing things that are going to really help us economically and politically, right? The voter roll cleaning is a big deal. If the court had ruled against Texas and we weren't able to redistrict those 5 seats so they would be likely won by Republicans this coming November, we would have been in serious trouble. This ruling assures those will be the maps. Big, big win. Big win. And, we've just got to celebrate that. We've got to share that. And now other states, I think it's Indiana or Illinois, they're moving to redistrict. Florida, DeSantis says they're going to redistrict with 5 more seats. We don't want to just win next year. We want to destroy our enemies. Destroy the enemies of America, the people who hate our country. We want to leave them no place to run but another country. We don't want to just keep the House. We want to do what the Tea Party did in 2010, where we won 62 seats. Flipped 62 seats. We want to hold the House with a majority that we can pass the agenda we're trying to pass, right? We want to win the Senate, not by 1 or 2. We want 60 votes at least if we can get it. That's going to be a heavy lift. But if we keep doing stuff like this, and the Supreme Court rules by June that all the gerrymandered districts that the Democrats did for decades, claiming that they had to protect minorities, and the Supreme Court has now ruled that's not legal. If they rule that way in June, there's going to be 19 more House seats that flip. That's what you and I want. That's what we're fighting for. Because it's been stolen from us. Just like the census stole all these House seats from us. The Democrats have been cheating your whole life. And, and the Republicans did some cheating too. Don't get me wrong. I know that. But the bottom line is, our government is a fraud. It's not even close. Our country is not equally divided. There's not 50% of Americans who hate America. There's not 25%. But they've stolen our institutions and they've stolen power. And we let them until now, and now we've got to end them. End them. You have zero power. You have no place to operate, no quarter. We will expose your theft of government money. We will arrest you. We will put you in prison. We will deport you. That's what war is about. And blowing up drug cartel boats in the Caribbean. That's what it's also about. Okay, this was good news for many of us who feel that the vaccines have been, again, manipulated by Big Pharma, purely for profit, endangering our children. Trump orders overhaul of U.S. vaccine schedules. This is good news. President Trump ordered his top officials Friday night to review all U.S. childhood vaccination recommendations. And get this, align them with the best practices from other developing countries. What does that mean? Well, Trump's memorandum orders Kennedy and the CDC director to review best practices from peer-developed countries for core childhood vaccination recommendations, vaccines recommended for all children, and the scientific evidence that informs these best practices. What are the results of these vaccines? If they determine that other countries' practices are better, Trump's order gives them the right to update the United States core childhood vaccine schedule to align with such scientific evidence and best practices from peer-developed countries while preserving access to vaccines currently available to Americans. Kennedy responded in an X post, "Thank you, Mr. President, we're on it." They also said that the vaccine that they give like an hour after a baby is born, I think it's hepatitis B or something like that, that you now don't have to get that. You can talk to your doctor. If the mother tests negative for that, then why should you give it to the baby when they really have no chance of getting it? Common sense, not, crazy vaccine, anti-vaccine stuff. Common sense. That's what we're about. Good stuff. We're getting what we voted for. Good stuff. This is really good stuff. Oh my goodness, is this good stuff. New lawsuit could topple the heart of race-based federal programs. Folks, we have needed this forever. A new lawsuit aims to end the government's practice of assuming that people of certain races are socially disadvantaged and entitled to special benefits. You can say that again. The case was brought on behalf of Revere Technologies, an artificial intelligence company that was denied a small business credit initiative subsidy because its owner, Matthew Shilhaste, is white, and the Young Americans Federal Foundation, a conservative group that said that interns in its college program were barred from the Department of Homeland Security fellowship that relied on SBA disadvantaged classification. So this owner is white, and Young Americans Foundation conservative groups and interns were denied access to SBI funds. Agencies across the federal government rely on decades-old Small Business Administration designation that, according to federal regulation, automatically applies to anyone of certain races. The federal government's pervasive use of race as a proxy for determining who is socially disadvantaged and therefore who receives contracts, grants, loans, investment capital, opportunities, and other benefits is unconstitutional and it must be stopped, the suit says. The move comes as decades old affirmative action programs were being ruled unconstitutional one by one. Center for Individual Rights attorney Mike Pertino told the Daily Wire that his suit targets a central regulation that is relied on by at least 20 different government programs. That is the SBI's 8 designation, which takes its name from the 1953 law and is fleshed out in regulation with no significant updates since 1998. Okay? Now, why is this important? First of all, it's just right on its face. This nonsense that we are a racist nation is really laughable to me, because the people who claim that, who charge you with that, who use that, throw that "you're a racist" around all the time, what do? Well, why do we count your race in the census? What does it matter what your race is? The census should be just to count, are you a citizen or not? Are you in this country? Why is your ethnic ability counted? Well, it's the same problem with, why do you have an income tax? Well, we have an income tax so we know how much you make, so we can decide how much to take. There shouldn't be income taxes. They should not be. There should only be consumption tax. The government should only know what you consume, not what you make. Okay? Same with property taxes. But let me stay on this thing. The census, we should not count Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Indigenous Americans. Why? Because we're all Americans. If we are equal, all equal under the law, why do we count that? You're not disadvantaged. If you're in this country, you're not disadvantaged. That might have been true in the 1930s and 1940s. It's not true now. And that proof is in Go watch an NBA game. Go see how people are underprivileged in the NBA. It's a lie. The way to end the lie is to get rid of the data. There should be no civil rights division in the DOJ. There should only be an equal rights division. That's when you'll know we're really the greatest country in the history of the world. When you take apart the data. Just thought you'd like that. And why do we have to do that? Well, here's why. Because when you go woke, you go broke. 90% of college students believe that words can be violence. Honest to God. And you know that, but I didn't think it was 90%. That's disgraceful. Where free speech is the foundation of our nation. Literally, we cannot exist as a nation if I don't have the right to say anything I want to you, and you have the right to ignore it, but not to shoot me like they shot Charlie Kirk, right? So the top 10% of Americans added $5 trillion to, oh wait, I'm on the wrong story here. We're at 1%, 90% of college students believe that the world can be violent, words can be violent. When I was growing up, one of the mantras of every child was told in order to civilize them and make them resilient to hateful slurs. The way this was done was sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. A nursery rhyme, right? That's what it was, a nursery rhyme. It was one of those kindergarten lessons taught to kids whose emotional dysregulation we all know. Learning all self-control and how to deal with inevitable conflicts is a life lesson that we all should internalize as quickly as possible, both because self-control is vital to civilization's flourishing and because not being able to withstand hurtful words or disagreements is anti-resilient. You can call me, and they did call me, a dumb Pollock when I was growing up, and I had the right to either, ignore you or punch you in the face, okay? But the problem is, I didn't punch you in the face because that wasn't the right answer. The right answer was, you're an idiot and I don't care what you say. Sometime between the period I grew up in, early Gen X, and the education of millennials and Gen Z, the old mantra has been reversed. Now, words are violence, and violence in return is just self-defense. Why would they teach that? Because they wanted to end free speech and they wanted to create chaos and violence and destroy our society. It wasn't an accident. The people who taught this need to go to prison. That is insurrection. I know you think that's over the top, but it's not. When people intentionally took action, and again, if we investigate, you'll read the literature, you'll see they knew what they were doing was destroying our culture and our students, okay? It was intentional, wasn't accidental. It wasn't like, oh, they thought this was a good idea, but it really wasn't. No. It was a bad idea, and they knew it. Earlier this year, FIRE conducted a poll of college students that included questions about their attitudes towards speech, and the results were genuinely shocking. 9 out of 10 college students believe that, in at least some circumstances, speech itself could be classified as a form of violence. My first thought was that perhaps most were speaking about what we call fighting words, which amount to threats of violence that can, in some circumstances, lead to imminent violence. I'm going to kill you might be a call to violence, or shouting at a crowd, go get him, might count. Could it be that we were speaking about that? No. The College Fix poll divided into the results, and they were, shall we say, disturbing. All that propaganda about terrorism, from speech, silence is violence, is working on the younger set. When respondents were asked how much the statement words can be violence described their thoughts, 47% answered with completely or mostly, 28% it describes their thoughts somewhat, and 15% says light. Additionally, around 59% of students said silence is violence, describing their views at least somewhat, though only 28% describing that thoughts completely or mostly. Meaning, if you don't say, condemn Israel, if you are silent about Israel and don't say, Gaza is a genocide, that's violence too. So it's not just what you say is violence and I can hurt you, but what you don't say, I can hurt you. How's that for undermining society? when people start thinking that words can be violence, violence becomes an acceptable response to words, Fire Chief Research Advisor Sean Stevens said in a news release following the poll. Even after the murder of Charlie Kirk at a speeding event, college students think that someone's words can be a threat. This is antithetical to free and open society where words are the best alternative to political violence. The poll also showed that moderate and conservative students have grown less supportive of disruptive or violent tactics to stop campus speakers, while liberal students support those tactics and has stayed the same or risen slightly. Meaning, you come on campus to speak, and we're going to make sure that you can't speak. Okay? We're just going to make sure you can't speak. That's wrong. And they did it on purpose, and we need to stop it. It's just not right. It's just not what should have happened. I'm out of sequence here. I'm sorry, I kind of lost my place, and I got to get back in sequence here. And I know we're over our normal thing, so we got to finish up here. So I'll try to bring this together. Okay. There's that story. All right. There's a new thing out that's called that. I know many of you hate WinRED, right? And you're always upset that whenever you want to donate to something that doesn't even seem political, it goes to a WinRED leak. And WinRED is that thing that they created so that you could raise money from small donors and compete with Act Blue. Now, what we're finding out about Act Blue, which is now shutting down because they were laundering money, okay, and that's a whole investigation. But WinRED, we always felt like, I don't want to give the Republican Party. I don't want them having to do with this. And a lot of you didn't give. So there's a new thing that's coming out that is called Impact. Scoop, new fundraising platform ignites MAGA cash clash. A new Trump-aligned fundraising platform has emerged and is poised to upend the Republican Party's massive cash ecosystem. The new platform, called Impact, will clash with the party's dominant small dollar fundraiser partner, WinRED, for supremacy over the GOP's gold mine. The stakes are huge. During the 2024 campaign, WinRED, which, like Impact, is a for-profit business, processed $1.8 billion in donations from 4.5 million small donors. So this is big business. It is led. This new thing called Impact was launched on Thursday, promising to innovate and strengthen the Republican campaign infrastructure. It is led in part by Alex Berkowitz, a Trump 2024 aide and conservative influencer. Impact is owned by Public Square, a MAGA-friendly online marketplace that describes itself as anti-woke alternative to Amazon. Some of you have been involved with Public Square. This is a good thing. I think we need alternatives, and I want you to be aware. So if you hear about Impact compared to WinRED, that it could be a good alternative, and we'll watch that to see how that goes forward, okay? See how that goes forward. Now, we were talking about, the donations by the Dell family and how, it's like the Carnegies and stuff like that. And we need to get, that we've made too many people too rich. And I want to talk to you about that and now just give you some real data to show why that's got to stop. All right. This story was shocking. The wealth of the top 1% in the United States reaches a record $52 trillion. Whoa. $52 trillion. Let's see, the total wealth, do I have my right thing? Yes. Like many of the, boy, I'm so sorry that I'm having this problem here. Okay, where's my pages for a second? Okay, here we go. Sorry. The top 10% of Americans have added $5 trillion to their wealth in the second quarter. The stock market rally continued to benefit the biggest investors, according to new data from the Federal Reserve. The total wealth of the top 10%, or those with a net worth of more than $2 million, reached a record $113 trillion in the second quarter, up from $108 trillion in the first quarter, according to the Fed. The increase follows the 3 years of continued growth for those at the top, with the top 10% adding over $40 trillion to their wealth since COVID, since 2020. $40 trillion. The top 0.1% saw their wealth grow by 10% over the past year since the pandemic, and the top 1% of those who with a net worth of at least $46 million have seen their total wealth nearly double to over $23 trillion. Despite the recent fast growth at the top, total shares of wealth held by the upper echelon has remained fairly stable for decades. The top 1% held 29% of total household wealth in the second quarter, compared to 28% in 2000. So that's 25 years ago. The top 10% had 67% of total household wealth in the quarter, while the bottom 90% held 33%. However you look at it, it's an unequal distribution, okay? There's just too much money flowing to the top. So then this story came out, and it really kind of put it, in a starker contrast. It says, top 1% of Americans have taken $50 trillion from the bottom 90%. Like many of the viruses hardest hit by victims, the United States went into the COVID-19 pandemic racked by pre-existing conditions. A fraying public health infrastructure, inadequate medical supplies, and employer-based health insurance system perversely unsuited for the moment. These and others affections are surely contributing to the death toll. But in addressing the cause of consequences in this pandemic, it is cruelly uneven impact. The elephant in the room is extreme income inequality that came out of the COVID pandemic. How big is this elephant? A staggering $50 trillion. This is how much the upward mobile redistribution of income has cost American workers over the past several decades. This is not some back of a napkin approximation. According to a groundbreaking new work paper by Carter C. Price and Catherine Edwards of the Rand Corporation, this has been more equitable income distribution in the 3 decades following World War II. Merely held steady, the aggregate annual income of Americans earning below the 90th percentile would have been $2.5 trillion higher in the year 2018 alone. This amounts to an amount equal to nearly 12% of the GDP, enough to more than double the median income, enough to pay every single working American in the bottom 9 deciles an additional $1,144 a month, every single year. This is what happens when money controls politics. Okay, so I kind of stumbled through that. Let me just say this. Because of the laws we have, and the fact that we had Citizens United and all these laws that basically let money elect politicians, you and I have lost our agency. What is our agency? Our agency is our right to vote people out of office. But if the only way you can inform anybody of who to vote for is through $1 million ad campaigns, what agency do we have? And we're losing it. And I'm really worried about next year because of this. But here's the bottom line. They bribed our elected officials for most of your and my life to basically slant the economic laws in their benefit, and it has cost, according to this study, every American in the lower 90% $1,144 a month. What would that do to your life? And that's every year, every month of every year since 2020. That's what the stakes are. That's why you and we have to fight the fight. I don't want to do this. You don't want to spend 2 hours and 20 minutes listening to this podcast. You'd rather be doing something fun, right? Christmas shopping, playing with the kids, something like that. Why do we do it? Because we have to. Because it affects your and my individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. They've taken our prosperity. That's why they're so rich. That's why don't feel sorry for Michael Dell, who's worth $168 million that he gave 168 billion that he gave 6.5 billion to kids. He should give more. All of them should give more because they shouldn't have got it in the first place. But that's what you and I are fighting for. Our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. And you need to know that. All right. 2 last things and we'll wrap it up. This story is important because we know that the whole issue with Charlie Kirk is renewing our country's morality. And so there's a new class action lawsuit seeks to halt 10 Commandments displays in Texas. The Texas battle over the required displays of 10 Commandments in government school classrooms intensified again this week as civil rights groups filed a sweeping class action suit aiming to block the law in every school district. The newest case filed at San Antonio Federal Court claims 16 additional school districts do not want to have the 10 Commandments in the classroom. These districts are identified as representatives of the defendant class and would encompass all Texas districts similarly situated under Senate Bill 10. The filing asks the courts to declare the 10 Commandments display mandates unconstitutional and to bar statewide enforcement. We're appealing that. We've got to fight this because, again, the whole quote-unquote law that you've got separation of church and state. No, you don't. That's not in the Constitution. The Constitution says you shall not establish an official state religion. The Constitution, because of our freedom of speech laws and our freedom to practice your religion laws, actually requires that we have the 10 Commandments in our courthouses. By the way, they're in our courthouses, in stone, in government offices. Why do you think that was? Because they're essential. They're critical to who we are as a nation. They are our Judeo-Christian values. And of course, who's fighting this? The Chinese, the Dems, the commies who hate America. We got to keep fighting the fight. And so then I posted this on our website, and I mean it. This is another direct ask. Oh, that's the wrong thing. This is the White House cabinet meeting, okay? Got the wrong image here on this. On our video web section, on our website, wethepeopleconvention.org, under the video section, I posted the Trump cabinet meeting, okay? You know, here's the graphic that I can't seem to find for you. White House meeting. This is unbelievable. Never before in the history of government have regular citizens and voters been given the kind of access that Donald Trump has given you in his cabinet meetings. I posted the video of the whole thing. You need to watch it. Each and every cabinet member gives you a concise report on their department's most important priorities and issues and challenges that affect your life and our nation. Every American should watch this end to end. We, the people, have never before had access to this type of information from any government. You got to go watch it. It's unbelievable what they will tell you. You want to know this stuff. You watch this podcast, you got some of it. You hear from every agency. Please go to wethepeopleconvention.org and share that because it's awesome. And Donald Trump did it. All right? So as we close, our podcast, we always recognize that we're fulfilling Charlie Kirk's mission, right? By getting the spiritual revival of our nation. That's what it's about. It's not politics. If you don't believe in God, if you don't tell the truth, if you don't believe in marriage, if you don't believe in babies, if you don't believe in treating everyone equally, then you can't be the United States of America. As our founder said, this nation is created for a moral and religious people and is totally unsuited for any other. Why? As I've explained to you in the past, and if you're new to this program, here's why. Because the whole religious thing is so that you will govern yourself, so that you won't need government to govern you, that you will follow the 10 Commandments. If you don't murder your neighbor, if you take care of your kids, if you don't steal from your employer, you don't need the police that we have. You don't need the courts that we have. You don't need the laws that we have. That's what is at the base of it all. You have to have a religious foundation. Even if you don't believe it, you have to understand it so you will participate in it. Thou shalt not steal. You got to believe that. If you don't, you have chaos. And that's what the left wants. Okay? So that wraps up our podcast for this week. What is your job besides acting on all the things I asked you to do? Tell people about this podcast. Share it. Why? Because more people will take the actions we talked about. Share with me your thoughts and concerns, stories we should cover, ideas for stories that we should investigate. Write to us at info@wethepeopleconvention.org. info@wethepeopleconvention.org. Okay? We read your emails. We respond to them. Lots of the stories in here were from your ideas and suggestions. Okay? We're going to wrap up our podcast for this week. We hope you're enjoying the Christmas holiday season. We hope you can get your tree up, and get your decorations up, even though it's cold. Enjoy the football games this weekend. Enjoy family and friends. Be a happy warrior. But take the actions that are on our podcast page. WeThePeopleConvention.org. Click on the podcast button. We list every story, and at the bottom it says this week's action items. If you do that, you will protect and defend your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. We'll see you next week. We wish you all the best. You've been watching the We the People Convention News and Opinion podcast. My name is Tom Zalestowski. May God bless you, and may God continue to bless the great nation we live in, the United States of America. See you soon.
We are the